Before the world learned to speak, there was rhythm, the pulse of the sky, the breath of the sun, and the quiet watcher that followed it. They called him Khonsu, the traveler, the devourer of time, the son of Amun and Mut, who was born when silence itself became heavy enough to break. He was not a god of fire nor of storm, but of something far more precise, the measure between moments. When the sun fell, Khonsu's eye rose, tracing every heartbeat that dared to exist in the dark. The ancients said his light was borrowed, but that was a lie told to keep them calm. His glow was not reflection, it was remembrance. Each flicker of moonlight, a memory of the lives he had counted, the breaths he had kept, and the souls he had guided through the unseen. He was beautiful, yes, silver-skinned and silent. Yet those who watched him too closely felt the weight of something they could not name. Because Khonsu was not simply the moon, he was what the moon remembers. Every cycle he returned, not as rebirth, but as witness, to remind the gods that time itself was alive, that it watched them, that it fed. And when the wind whispered through the desert, when the Nile shimmered under his gaze, they said it was Khonsu speaking, counting the secrets that even the gods tried to forget. Born from silence, yet feared by light, he wandered the heavens with patient hunger, tracing the pulse of creation itself, waiting for the moment when even the sun would have to rest and his voice would be the only one left in the sky. Because in the end, light ends in him. They say the heavens once slept without interruption, a perfect rhythm between day and darkness. The sun ruled without rival, and the stars burned with obedient light. But then, Khonsu awoke. He did not rise with thunder or roar, but with a whisper that bent the silence of eternity. His light spread across the sky, and for the first time, the night began to move. The gods watched in awe, until they began to understand what that movement meant. Wherever his light touched, stillness faded. Stars dimmed, spirits stirred, the air thickened with something ancient, something hungry. For Khonsu did not simply illuminate, he drank. He drew power from what the world cast away. The forgotten, the unseen, the lifeless fragments of time left between sunsets. Each shadow became his altar, each silence his feast. The priests would later call it mercy, that Khonsu devoured to renew, that he swallowed what was dying so life could begin again. But the gods knew better. They had seen his eyes when the moon was full, the silver flame that never blinked. They knew he counted everything, every prayer, every lie, every moment that slipped through mortal hands. And when he hung above them round and radiant, they could feel it, his gaze passing through their divinity like a blade through smoke. The stars flickered as if retreating from him, and even Ra, lord of the blazing sun, felt the unease of being watched. Because Khonsu did not bow, he did not worship, he measured. The ancient stories say he once challenged the darkness itself and won, capturing its power within his glow. But those who told the tale in whispers added another truth, that darkness never truly left him. It only hid inside the light he carried. And so when his moon rose high, gods looked away, not because they despised him, but because they feared what they might see reflected in him. For Khonsu's hunger was never for flesh or blood. It was for memory, for the pieces of themselves that even gods were afraid to remember. And that is why they feared the night. Because when Khonsu awoke, the sky remembered too much. There came a night when even the gods refused to look up. Khonsu's light had grown too strong, too knowing. He no longer drifted as a quiet witness. He commanded the night like a god who had learned what the others would not admit. That creation was built on hunger, and hunger on truth. The gods gathered in silence, a council beneath the horizon. None spoke his name aloud, for to name Khonsu was to invite his gaze, and no god wished to be seen by him, not when he could read what they tried to bury. They remembered what he had done, how he walked across the heavens, counting the stars until they dimmed, how his glow stretched over temples and tombs, revealing what was hidden beneath stone and offering. They had given him the title, He Who Measures Time, but they feared what he was truly measuring. For Khonsu did not count our nosta, he counted truth. He saw deceit in prayers, he saw envy in offerings, he saw that even gods could pretend. And when he looked upon them with that calm, endless light, they saw themselves reflected, stripped of all the illusions they had created to rule. So they did what fearful beings always do when faced with something that remembers too much. They hid it. They bound Khonsu's radiance in the name of balance. They said the night was too long, that mortals needed more light, that his glow would guide too far into what was forbidden. But balance was only their excuse. In truth, they feared what he revealed, that every divine spark carried a shadow. They chained him in cycles, and waxing and waning, rising and falling, so that no one could ever see the full face of his truth again. The gods called it mercy, the priests called it order, but Khonsu knew what it was. It was fear wearing the mask of harmony. Still, he did not rage. He watched. He waited. His silence became deeper than their prayers, for he knew something they could not unlearn, that chains made of light still cast shadows. And within those shadows, Khonsu lingered, watching the gods who had tried to hide him, knowing that one day their light would fade, and his truth would rise again. Because you can cage a god of light, but you cannot silence the one who counts its end. They called it hunger, but that word was too small for what Khonsu carried within him. Every night he rose, pale, patient, eternal, tracing the skin of the world with a gaze that consumed without cruelty. The mortals looked up and whispered prayers for protection. The gods looked down and whispered warnings of restraint. But none of them understood what he was truly doing. Khonsu did not devour to destroy. He devoured to remember. When a soul passed through the veil, its final breath shimmered in the dark, and Khonsu, the moon god, caught it. He drew it into himself, not to erase it, but to keep it from vanishing. He became the keeper of what the world left behind. To the living, he was the devourer. To the dead, he was the promise that nothing is ever truly lost. Every fading heartbeat, every forgotten name, every fragment of broken hope, all of it was gathered in his silver light. The priests said his glow waxed because he fed and waned because he released. But they never said what he released. When the moon grew full, Khonsu had taken enough of the world's grief, enough of its endings. His light would blaze, heavy with memory, pressing against the night until it could no longer hold him. Then, piece by piece, he would empty himself, releasing everything he had consumed back into the world, renewed, remade. This was his hunger, not for life itself, but for its rhythm. The endless cycle of taking and giving, consuming and becoming. The other gods misunderstood it. They feared that his appetite would one day reach them. But Khonsu was never after their power. He was after their forgetting. He wanted to teach them what the stars already knew, that nothing dies when it transforms. The hunters who prayed to him asked for success. The healers who called his name sought mercy. Yet both received the same answer in his silence. What I take I will give again, but never in the same form. He was the pulse between loss and creation, the breath after death. And so each night, as the moon climbed and began to fade, the world repeated the ritual, dying, returning, becoming. Khonsu's hunger was the quiet law beneath it all. He watched the mortals bury their dead and cry to the heavens, and though they could not hear it, his whisper echoed through the dark. Nothing you lose is gone. I have taken it, and when you are ready, I will give it back. That is why his hunger was sacred. Because what Khonsu devoured never disappeared. It was only waiting. Inside the light of the next moon, there is a moment when the world is quiet and the moon hangs heavy, where the air itself feels like a reflection. That is when Khonsu begins to see you. His light does not fall like the sun's. It doesn't expose, it reveals. It reaches into the corners of your being, the ones you've learned to lock away. Every unspoken thought, every wound that you've buried under laughter or duty, Khonsu sees them as they are. The ancient said his eyes were silver because they reflected every truth without judgment. But it wasn't truth that frightened those who met his gaze. It was recognition. Because Khonsu does not show you monsters. He shows you yourself. The gods called him he who measures time. But mortals knew him by another name, he who knows the hidden face. For every night as his light shifted and dimmed, it moved like a mirror over the soul, uncovering what daylight refused to see. When he looked upon a king, he saw the fear behind the crown. When he looked upon a priest, he saw the doubt behind the prayer. And when he looked upon you, he saw what you already know but cannot yet accept. Khonsu is not a destroyer of lies. He is the quiet space where your lies lose their power. He never speaks. He waits. His silence forces you to listen to your own. They say his light can drive a man to madness. But madness is only the shock of seeing what was always there. The unhealed, the unloved, the forgotten fragments of the self. That is the mirror Khonsu holds. It does not flatter. It does not wound. It simply reflects. And when you stand beneath his gaze, you begin to understand why even gods avoided his eyes. For they too feared their own reflection. The truth that even divine light casts a shadow. Khonsu never punished them for it. He never punished anyone. He simply watched, and in his stillness forced them to face the rhythm they had denied. Because the moon, like the soul, does not shine by its own fire. It glows by what it receives and what it returns. So when Khonsu's light touches you and you feel that strange pull in your chest, that quiet unease that feels like remembering, know this: he is not showing you what's wrong. He's showing you what you've hidden too well. He is the mirror between worlds, the silent witness who turns your darkness into recognition. And when you can finally look back at him without turning away, that is when he knows. You've begun to see yourself as he always has. There are nights when the moon feels too close, when its light presses on your skin as if it knows something you don't. That is when Khonsu is teaching. He does not speak in words or miracles. His lessons come in reflection, in hunger, in the things you try hardest to silence. For Khonsu was never the god of comfort. He was the god of recognition. He teaches through the shadows that walk beside you, through the fears you keep buried under the noise of daily life, through the craving that burns behind your polite smiles. Because Khonsu knows, those things are not your curses, they are your language. The world told you to fear your darkness, to tame it, to pray it away. But Khonsu, who has walked through endless night, knows that the dark is where truth lives. The sun blinds with its brilliance, but the moon reveals what the light never stays still long enough to see. When Khonsu crosses the sky, he does not shine to destroy the dark. He shines within it. He reminds you that your shadow is not an intruder. It is the part of you still waiting to be understood. Your jealousy, your anger, your desire, your guilt. They are not chains. They are signals. They tell you where you are still human, where you are still alive. Khonsu does not demand you to erase them. He asks that you listen to them. Because he knows the truth the gods once feared, that no light can exist without a place to return to. And you too are made of that same rhythm, rising, falling, hiding, returning. Khonsu watches from above, patient as the tides. He knows that every time you deny your own night, you lose a piece of your wholeness. So he waits for you to look up and realize what his cycle has always been trying to say, that what disappears will return, but never as it was. When the moon wanes, it is not dying. When you fall, you are not failing. It is all the same lesson. What breaks must shed its skin to live again. Khonsu's message is not of purity, it is of balance. The acceptance that light without darkness becomes hollow and darkness without light becomes lost. So when you feel that ache in your chest, that quiet pull towards something you cannot name, understand that it is not destruction calling you. It is recognition. The god of the moon is reminding you that even in your weakest hour, something sacred is watching, counting, remembering. Khonsu teaches you this. Your darkness is not your downfall. It is the mirror that shows you where the light should return. And when you can stand in that balance, when you no longer run from what you are, you will finally understand what the gods once feared, that the night was never against you, it was you waiting to be seen. There are truths that cannot be spoken in daylight. They wait for the silence of the night, for the hour when your voice is small and your thoughts are louder than the world around you. That is when Khonsu comes closest. He does not appear with thunder or command. He appears in the quiet ache you try to ignore. The ache that asks, "Why do I feel empty when everything looks whole?" Khonsu does not answer with comfort. He answers with reflection. His silver light does not erase the wound. It shows you what lives inside it. Because the god of the moon has always known, healing does not come from running away from pain. It comes from walking through it until you understand its shape. Every scar you carry, every regret you keep hidden, they are maps. They tell the story of how you broke and where you began again. Khonsu wants you to see that your cracks are not proof of weakness, but proof that you endured. He watched as even the gods tried to deny their wounds, covering them with glory, pretending they could not bleed. And for that, they feared him, because when his light fell on them, it revealed the fractures beneath their perfection. But Khonsu was never sent to shame them. He was sent to remind them that every wound is an unfinished truth, a place where the divine still breathes through what is broken. He wants you to understand the same, that the pain you carry is not your punishment, it is your teacher. It shows you where your compassion was born, where your understanding deepened, where your strength was shaped in silence. When the moon wanes, it looks wounded, a piece of itself missing. Yet Khonsu never hides. He continues his path across the heavens, unashamed of the shadow that covers him. Because he knows the darkness is temporary and through it light will find its form again. So when you feel hollow, when your reflection feels like a stranger, look toward him. You'll see that he is never truly whole, never unbroken, and still he shines. That is the lesson he waits for you to learn, that the light you seek is not beyond you, not hidden in temples nor buried in the heavens. It is inside your wound, waiting for you to stop running from it. Khonsu's wisdom is the rhythm of survival, to illuminate what hurts, not to erase it, but to let it breathe. For only then can you see that what you thought was your end was always the beginning of your becoming. He wants you to understand this simple truth, that wholeness is not the absence of pain, but the harmony between pain and meaning. And until you see that, his light will keep returning to you again and again, whispering through the night, "Do not fear the wound. It is where I live in you." There comes a night when the moon is so still you almost forget it's moving. But Khonsu never stops. His journey is silent, deliberate, endless. And he wants you to know you are doing the same. He watches you from above through the thin veil that separates the heavens from thought. He sees the way you chase your desires, how you reach for what fills you, how you turn away when it begins to fade. He sees the way you hunger, the way you hope. And in that rhythm, that endless cycle of wanting and losing, Khonsu sees himself. Because you too are a moon. You rise, you fall, you disappear and return. Never the same, yet always familiar. You wax with strength, you wane with doubt, and through it all, something within you keeps moving forward. Khonsu wants you to look at yourself and see what the gods forgot. That balance is not stillness. It is motion. It is the art of living between light and shadow without denying either. He knows that you are the hunter, the one who chases purpose, who devours experience, who consumes the world in search of meaning. But he also knows that you are the moon, the one who reflects what you have taken, who returns it as light, who transforms hunger into wisdom. The gods once feared this truth, that within every being, creation and destruction share the same pulse. They hid from it. They chained Khonsu in light so they would not have to face their own reflection. But Khonsu never forgot. And he does not want you to forget either. He wants you to see your darkness without shame, your desires without guilt, your cycles without fear. For these are not your flaws, they are the map of your becoming. When you fall into despair, he wants you to remember that even the moon disappears. But disappearance is not death, it is renewal. Every time you lose yourself, you are gathering what you need to return brighter. Khonsu measures your time, yes, but not to judge it. He counts your rises and your falls so you will see that both are sacred. That what you take from the world you will one day give back. That every act of destruction hides the seed of creation. He wants you to look at yourself as he does, whole, even in pieces, infinite, even in silence. Because you are not the light alone, you are the space it fills. You are not the hunger alone, you are the calm that follows. Khonsu's reflection in you is this. You are both the hunter and the moon, the seeker and the witness, the taker and the giver, the shadow and the light that redeems it. And when you can finally look at yourself through his eyes, you will understand what he has always known. That nothing in you was ever meant to be denied. It was all meant to be seen. They say the night is silent, but Khonsu hears everything. When you lift your eyes toward the moon, thinking it only reflects your gaze, it is already watching back. Every thought you've hidden, every longing you've buried beneath reason, every face you've worn to make the world believe you're whole. Khonsu counts them one by one like a priest of memory measuring what the daylight tries to erase. He is the watcher of cycles, the keeper of your returning. His light does not expose to shame, it reveals what insists on being seen. In his glow, the masks grow thin. The laughter you forced, the fears you silenced, the love you couldn't hold. He does not judge them. He measures them, turning them into time, marking the rhythm of your becoming. The ancients said he devoured time to renew it, that he fed upon the moments mortals discarded. But what they meant was this. Khonsu consumes what you deny so that you may be made whole again. Every secret is a tide, and he is the pull that brings it to shore. So when the night feels too still, and the air carries that quiet awareness, remember, it isn't empty. Khonsu is there, tracing your pulse beneath the skin of eternity. The moon you stare at is not distant. It is your reflection learning to look back. If you've ever felt the moon watching you, don't look away. Sit with that feeling. Let Khonsu remind you of what you've tried to forget. the parts of yourself still waiting to be seen. Because the night is not your enemy. It's the mirror that knows your name. Look again. What is the moon showing you tonight? And if this story found you in the dark, like, comment, and subscribe for more ancient truths that still breathe in your shadow.